Welcome to E-Bible Fellowship's Evening Bible Studies with your host and Bible teacher, Chris McCann. For more studies, visit our website at www.ebiblefellowship.org. And now, here's Chris McCann.
Good evening and welcome to E-Bible Fellowship's Bible study in the book of Genesis. Tonight is study number 11 of Genesis chapter 14. We're going to begin reading in verse 5. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaims in Ashtaroth Karnaim, and the Zuzims in Ham, and the Amins in Shava Carithium, and the Horites in their Mount Seir unto El Paran, which is by the wilderness. And they returned and came to En-Mishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites, that dwelt in Hazazadon Tamar. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the same as Zoar, and they joined battle with them in the vale of Siddim, with Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and with Tidal, king of nations, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings with 5. And the vale of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there. And they that remained fled to the mountain, and they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their victuals, and went their way. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. I'll stop reading there. Now, we've seen that this historical battle spiritually points to the time of the end, the time when Satan is loosed and comes against the camp of the saints, and the battle is engaged between the 4 kings, representative of Satan's assault, against the 5 kings, led by Sodom and Gomorrah, that represent the corporate church. And so we have discussed that. We've also spent some time discussing the numbers that the Lord gives us of 12, 13, and 14. And so now we're going to move on to look at the battle itself. And one of the first things we see is that the battle is greater than we originally thought. It's not just 4 kings against 5 kings and those city-states, but here in verse 5, we read that Chedorlaomer, and he's a type of Satan, and the kings that were with him, the other 3 kings, who represent, again, the forces of Satan. Gog and Magog is another way the Bible portrays that. They, likewise, before battling Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Zoar, they come and smite the Rephaims in Ashtaroth Karnaim, and the Zuzims in Ham, and the Amins in Shava Carithium, and the Horites in their Mount Seir unto El Paran, which is by the wilderness. And they're not done yet. In verse 7, and they returned and came to En-Mishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites that dwelt in Hazazon Tamar. And then following that, we read, there went out the king of Sodom and king of Gomorrah and joined battle. So Chedorlaomer and the 3 kings with him, these forces, are carrying out a scorched earth policy, it appears. They are doing battle with many more nations than just the 5 led by Sodom and Gomorrah. And this would go along with what the Bible tells us about the end time assault of Satan in Revelation chapter 13. It says in verse 7 regarding the beast, and that's the name assigned to Satan by God for his period of rule during the 23-year Great Tribulation. It says in verse 7, "And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world." And this same chapter goes on to speak about the image of the beast. And remember, in the book of Daniel, which that image of the beast in Revelation 13 is drawn from, in Daniel, King Nebuchadnezzar makes a golden image and commands all the nations that Babylon has conquered, all the provinces, to bow down and worship. That's a figure of Satan's worldwide rule during the Great Tribulation period. He, of course, rules the churches as the Lord has turned over the church into his hands and under his control, and so he rules as the man of sin, but he rules in the nations of the world through their increased wickedness, their increased bounding iniquity. God has lifted the Holy Spirit's hand of restraint, permitting the unsaved population of the earth to engage in sins and transgressions like never before in history. And whenever man sins, like Adam in the Garden of Eden, he is not doing service to God. Remember, it says in Romans 6, "The one to whom ye obey, that is the one that you are serving." And so as iniquity abounds, as the unsaved people of the earth increase in their transgressions and they increase in their sinful lifestyle, it is also increased service to sin and to Satan. And so through their being given over, as Romans chapter 1 says, to a whole list of gross sins at the time of the end, mankind is doing service to the devil. They're doing service to Satan, and in that way, Satan rules in a greater manner than ever before over the people of the nations. That's the kingdom of darkness, through, again, their increase in iniquity. And we also read in Jeremiah chapter 27 that God has given the nations up to this. In Jeremiah 27, beginning in verse 1, "In the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, came this word unto Jeremiah from Jehovah, saying, Thus saith Jehovah to me, Make thee bonds and yokes, and put them upon thy neck, and send them to the king of Edom, and to the king of Moab, and to the king of the Ammonites, and to the king of Tyrus, and to the king of Zidon, by the hand of the messengers which come to Jerusalem unto Zedekiah king of Judah, and command them to say unto their masters, Thus saith Jehovah of hosts, the God of Israel, Thus shall ye say unto your masters, I have made the earth, the man and the beast that are upon the ground, by my great power and by my outstretched arm, and have given it unto whom it seemed meet unto me. And now I have given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon my servant, and the beast of the field have I given him also to serve him, and all nations shall serve him, and his son, and his son's son, until the very time of his land come, and then many nations and great kings shall serve themselves of him. And so Chedorlaomer again is synonymous with Nebuchadnezzar in picturing Satan coming at the time of the end of the world. And the nations mentioned here, Sodom, Gomorrah, and Admah, Zeboim, the Amalekites, the Amorites, and we have reference to the Horites who dwelt in Mount Seir, and Mount Seir would later be taken over by Edom, Esau, and Edom and Mount Seir also are related to the corporate church. So it is a picture of Satan coming against the worldwide congregations, the churches and congregations of the world, and Chedorlaomer smites them all, along with the kings with him. He smote the Rephaims and Ashtaroth and so forth, and he smote the country of the Amalekites and the Amorites, and he wins the battle against Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, one thing we should point out in verse 5 is, as Chedorlaomer and the kings with him smite the Rephaims and the Zuzims and the Emins, they are all related to giants. Each one of the names there identifies with giants. For instance, the Emims, if we go to Deuteronomy chapter 2, beginning in verse 9, and Jehovah said unto me, distress not the Moabites, neither contend with them in battle, for I will not give thee of their land for possession, because I have given Ar unto the children of Lot for a possession. The Emims dwelt therein in times past, a people great and many and tall as the Anakims, which also were accounted giants as the Anakims, but the Moabites called them Emims. So Emims are giants. Now, another name here in Genesis 14, verse 5, Rephaim. Rephaim is Strong's number 7497, and Rephaim, that Hebrew word, is also translated as giant. As a matter of fact, it's in the very same verse in Deuteronomy 2, verse 11, in speaking of the Anakims, which also were accounted giants. That's Strong's number 7497, or Rephaim, translated as Rephaim. And further down in Deuteronomy 2, in verse 20, well, I'll start reading in verse 19. And when thou comest nigh over against the children of Ammon, distress them not, nor meddle with them, for I will not give thee of the land of the children of Ammon any possession, because I have given it unto the children of Lot for a possession. That also was accounted a land of giants, Rephaim, the same Hebrew word, 7497. Giants, same word, dwelt therein in old time, and the Ammonites called them Zamzumims. Now, there's the third name in Genesis 14:5, although it's different in our verse. It says in the Zuzims in Ham. The Rephaims and Ashtaroth Karnaim, and the Zuzims in Ham, and the Emins and Shavakarithium. But we can see the relationship between the Zuzims and the Zamzuzims that are referred to in Deuteronomy chapter 2 and in that verse we just read. And the words are different. slightly different, but there is relationship between them. And I think, given that the Rephaims are giants and the Emins are giants, that it would figure that the Zuzims are also giants. And we do have reference to Zamzuzims that are identified as giants. Well, Chedorlaomer comes and smites the land of the giants. And I'm not too sure what the spiritual meaning of that is, that this would be a different word for giant than we saw earlier in the book of Genesis. I think it was Genesis chapter 6. There were giants in the land. That was a different Hebrew word. This particular word, Rephaim, translated as giants, we do know is speaking of giants in the land of Canaan. And the Emins, for example, that Hebrew word is 368, and it's from or derived from a word 367 in Strong's Concordance that means fear or terror. And remember when Israel came out of Egypt and they approached, I think it was Kadesh Barnea, and sent the spies to search out the land, and they came back with what the Bible calls an evil report. What was their evil report? Well, their evil report included information that there were men of great stature in the land, as it says in Numbers 13, beginning in verse 28. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there, the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea, and by the coast of Jordan. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses, and said, Let us go up at once, and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, We be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, The land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of a great stature. And there we saw the giants, and that's that same word, Rephaim, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. And all the congregation in chapter 14, verse 1, lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron. And the whole congregation said unto them, Would God that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would God we had died in this wilderness? And wherefore hath Jehovah brought us unto this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should be a prey? Were it not better for us to return into Egypt? You see, as soon as they heard about the giants, they were afraid. They were fearful of the giants. And just remember when David went to fight Goliath. For 40 days, Goliath came into the valley and challenged the men of Israel, and they all shuddered with fear, because a giant was an imposing figure, a frightening figure. They could be as tall as 9.5 feet, 10 feet, and men of that day were not even 6 feet tall. That was the average height, maybe was 5'7", 5'8", or a little taller. And here's a man almost twice their size, and how fearful. And it was the giants that cause the spies to fear and to give their evil report. And so the giants were a sort of defense for the land of Canaan. And so one thing we can see, as Chedorlaomer and his allies, the other three kings and their men, they go to squash the rebellion, to put it down, and the first thing they do is smite the giants. They smite the Rephaims in Ashtoreth Karnaim, and the Zuzims in Ham, and the Emins in Shavath Kerethaim. And certainly word would have spread quickly. It would have been very intimidating to all other people living at that time to hear that Chedorlaomer came with such a tremendous army that he defeated even the giants of the land. And if he defeated the giants, well, what chance do we have to fight against him? You can see how disheartening and discouraging it would be to the people. Similarly to when Joshua led forces of Israel across the River Jordan 40 years after they entered, the spies gave that evil report. And finally, Israel enters and begins by destroying Jericho with a miraculous destruction as the walls come tumbling down and the whole city is destroyed. And news spread quickly to all the other city-states of what had happened to Jericho, and that obviously God was fighting for them. Well, this is similar in a way. It is indicating Chedorlaomer is possessing great strength. And that's one thing that spiritually is in view concerning the assault of Satan upon the forces of the churches and congregations of the world. Satan possesses great strength as he was loosed. And remember, the people of the nations wonder at him in Revelation 13 because his deadly wound was healed. And let's go back there. We see their awe and wonder in Revelation 13, verse 3. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And you see, he is able to defeat everyone. He's able to defeat everyone. If Satan has come back from the dead because he received that death blow at the cross and he was bound for 1,000 years, but now we see him and look at his power, look at his strength. It's restored, and not only restored, it's greater than ever. Who can make war with him? Look, he's overcoming church after church, congregation after congregation. And finally, the world is serving him as it's never done before. The restraints upon the hearts of men have been lifted. Now mankind doesn't care anything about a Sabbath day. They don't care anything about abortion. They don't care anything about gay marriage or homosexual activity. They don't care anything about any law of God, about any morality. They are free to do service to the beast, free to serve Satan in an unparalleled manner like never seen before in the history of the world. Certainly, he is most mighty and strong and will defeat anyone that comes against him. And that's what we see in this historical battle that Chedorlaomer and the other four kings, representative of the four beasts that picture Satan and his assault at the end of the world, they begin with the land of the giants, and they smite the giants. If the giants cannot stand before them, then who can?
Thank you for joining us for E-Bible Fellowship's Evening Bible Studies with your host and Bible teacher, Chris McCann. For more studies and information, visit our website at www.ebiblefellowship.org. Until our next Bible study, may the Lord's perfect will be done.